We have just witnessed something disconcerting in the world of clean energy, an alliance that no one expected. It was announced with hardly any media noise, buried between headlines about artificial intelligence and chip wars. This alliance does not fit into any of the usual stories about energy. The energy transition should be resolved with what we already know: more panels, more turbines, more batteries. Instead, the solution that has appeared on the horizon is surprisingly old, deeply radical, and far more promising than anyone anticipated. Some now think that the energy of the future will not come from the sky but from miles beneath our feet. But is that even possible on an industrial scale? And what would it mean for our civilization to change the energy paradigm from top to bottom? We unravel why this technology defies all conventional narratives.
O din 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 dun, ma din 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 dun è stato rilasciato. Libertà! Sì sì sì! Ta ta ta!
Audacious experiment from Google and a small startup called Fervo Energy, and discover why it could be the missing piece in the biggest energy challenge of our era. Think about this: Google, with all its data centers and its immense supercomputers processing searches, videos, and artificial intelligence models every second of the day, has proposed something monumental, hour of every day without exception. So far, the wind and sun have done the heavy lifting, but they have a flaw that no one can ignore. The wind stops blowing and the sun sets every night, and the artificial intelligence does not sleep. Google data centers do not shut down. You don't stop using the internet at 3 in the morning. The problem is not generating clean energy, it is generating clean energy in a constant, predictable way and without depending on the weather. The answer they found is not in the sky, it is underground. To understand what Google and Fervo are building today, you have to go back more than a century, specifically to Italian Tuscany in 1904. Prince Piero Ginori Conti had been sweating bullets for months, drilling into the volcanic soil of the Arderello with an obsessive idea in his head. He had built a rudimentary turbine and connected it to a geothermal steam well. Everything was ready. He invited friends, investors, and skeptical journalists who had come to witness what many expected to be a failure. He opened the valve. At first nothing, then a hiss, and then the roar of the blades turning. On the other side of the room, 5 light bulbs came on, bathing the stunned faces of those present with light. Ginori Conti had just created the world's first geothermal energy generator. Their experiment was more of a proof of concept than an actual power plant, but it demonstrated something fundamental. The Earth's internal heat can be converted into electricity. 100 years later, it is still the same. What has changed is everything else. We were sitting on a battery of infinite energy, but with the door locked. Before understanding Fervo's revolution, it is important to be clear about the basic mechanics of traditional geothermal energy, because it is the same logic that underlies everything that comes after. Traditional geothermal works by taking advantage of a triple geological miracle. You need extreme heat near the surface, abundant groundwater, and porous rocks that act like a sponge. In essence, you depend on finding a natural pressure cooker already assembled by nature. Iceland, the Pacific Ring of Fire, the volcanic areas of New Zealand, these places exist and work wonderfully, but they are very rare. Most of the planet simply does not have those geological features. When engineers drill a well into a natural hydrothermal reservoir, the water down there is subjected to such brutal pressure that, despite being at hundreds of degrees of temperature, it cannot evaporate. It remains in a liquid state. When they open the well and bring that super hot water to the surface, the pressure drops suddenly. Imagine opening a bottle of freshly shaken cava. When the pressure is removed, the gas shoots out. The same thing happens here. As the pressure drops on its upward journey, a large portion of that boiling water explodes and instantly turns into high pressure steam. This system is known as sudden vaporization or flash steam and is the most common in the world. That steam heats the blades of a turbine, spinning it to generate electricity. The turbine is connected to an electromagnetic generator where the rotary movement is transformed into electric current. Once the steam has done its job, It passes through a condenser that returns it to a liquid state and is re-injected back into the depths to maintain the cycle. It is an elegant, clean, and efficient system, but it depends entirely on nature having prepared that reservoir for you. What would happen if we could create that reservoir anywhere on the planet where we wanted? In 2018, two engineers with very different backgrounds met at Stanford and decided to join forces. Timatimer had grown up in a small town in Texas where the community voted to build a coal plant. As a child, he saw firsthand how that plant generated both economic growth and environmental damage for his town. And that marked him. He became a drilling engineer in the oil and gas industry, where he mastered the techniques that fueled the shale gas or shale gas revolution, including hydraulic fracturing, popularly known as fracking. Fracking consists of injecting water at very high pressure into the rock to open it and create cracks through which the resources trapped inside can flow. In oil, these cracks release crude oil and gas. In geothermal energy, they allow water to circulate and absorb heat. The same mechanism for two radically different purposes, but over time, the negative effects of that work in the oil sector weighed too much. He left it and went to Stanford to look for something else. Meanwhile, Jack Norbeck had taken a different path. As a geotechnical engineer, he had worked at the geysers in Northern California, the largest geothermal field in the world, where he helped develop new approaches to extracting geothermal energy using hydraulic stimulation. Later, he also came to Stanford for his doctorate. Tim was an expert in drilling and fracking. Jack was an expert in geothermal energy. Together, they had exactly the skill set that no one had combined before. In 2017, they founded Fervo Energy with a seemingly simple idea, but one that the industry considered impossible. Apply the horizontal techniques of oil fracking to geothermal energy to be able to extract heat from the earth anywhere, not just where nature made it easy. Shortly after, they caught the attention of Google, and in 2023, they signed a first-of-its-kind cooperation agreement. What Fervo has built is called an Enhanced Geothermal System, or EGS. The central idea is to stop depending on natural reservoirs and create your own anywhere on the planet where there is hot rock, which is practically everywhere if you drill deep enough. The process starts with data. Detailed models of the subsurface are created to identify exactly where the heat is. Fervo then drills a vertical well that goes down between 2,400 and 3. At that depth, the rock is burning at more than 200 degrees Celsius, but instead of continuing downward, the well turns 90 degrees and continues horizontally for more than 1 m5 through solid impermeable rock. Next to it, a second parallel well forms the pair, one for injection and the other for production. And here comes the part that the industry considered impossible. Using multi-stage hydraulic stimulation techniques, they create hundreds of artificial cracks in the rock separating the two wells, turning an inert bedrock into a giant radiator with a huge contact surface. They then inject cold water through the injection well. The water runs through the cracks, absorbs the heat of the rock, and returns to the surface through the production well converted into hot geothermal fluid. They have created an underground thermal circuit where none existed before, but the water that rises is not used directly to drive turbines. Here comes the organic Rankine cycle, a thermodynamic system that allows electricity to be generated from heat sources that are not intense enough to directly boil water efficiently. The idea is to use a second fluid with a much lower boiling point so that it vaporizes with less heat and moves the turbines more efficiently. This geothermal fluid passes through a heat exchanger where it gives up its temperature to a working fluid such as isobutane, which vaporizes instantly and is what makes the turbines rotate in a completely closed circuit. It then cools, returns to a liquid state, and the cycle repeats indefinitely, while the original geothermal fluid is re-injected 100% back into the depths. All this in a completely sealed system with multiple layers of steel and cement without contact with surface groundwater. What makes Fervo's design truly revolutionary is not just that it works anywhere, is that it solves the problem that neither the sun nor the wind can solve. Traditional geothermal has always been base load energy. It produces a constant amount of electricity non-stop, no matter what happens on the grid. That's valuable but limited. Modern power grids also need sources that can adjust their output in real time based on demand, what engineers call load following. Think of it as the difference between a faucet that always runs at the same pace and one that you can turn on or off depending on how thirsty you are. Power grids need both types. Fervo has added fiber optic sensors distributed throughout all of its wells to monitor temperature, pressure, and flow in real time. This allows them to adjust the power output with a precision that has never before been possible in a geothermal plant, exactly covering the gaps that the sun and wind leave unfilled. For Google, this is exactly what it needed. In 2026, it signed a 3 gigawatts power purchase agreement or PPA with a PPA is a long-term contract in which a company agrees to buy the electricity produced by a plant for years, giving Fervo the financial stability to build on a large scale and Google the guarantee of clean supply it needs for its data centers. It is the largest geothermal energy deal in history. Furthermore, compared to immense fields of solar panels or wind turbines, a Fervo installation occupies a tiny fraction of the surface area. The plant is underground. On the surface, we barely see anything, but scientific honesty forces us to also look at the challenges. The first and best known is induced seismicity. When you inject millions of liters of fluid at high pressure to fracture rock kilometers deep, you alter the pressure balance in the subsurface. This change can reactivate small geological faults that have been immobile for centuries, causing tremors. It's not just theoretical. Previous projects in Switzerland and South Korea had to be cancelled because they caused tremors noticeable to the population. Fervo responds to this with continuous seismic monitoring using fiber optic sensors and a traffic light system that automatically stops operations if anomalies are detected. So far, its results have been clean, but it is a risk that must be monitored closely. The second challenge is thermal exhaustion. If heat is extracted from the rock faster than the Earth's interior can replenish it, the temperature of the extracted fluid can drop over time, reducing the efficiency of the system. It is a manageable problem if the system is designed well, but it cannot be ignored. And then there is the cost. Drilling miles of hard granite remains one of the most expensive operations a company can undertake. It is precisely here where the experience of the oil industry makes the difference. Decades of improvements in horizontal drilling techniques have made this process enormously cheaper, and Fervo is transferring that knowledge directly to geothermal. Despite everything, the horizon is bright. In May 2026, Fervo went public offering 70 million shares worth between 24 and 27 each, thus raising nearly. In Utah, Cape Station is building a 400 megawatts project that will deliver clean and constant energy starting in 2028. And the US Department of Energy estimates that by 2050, enhanced geothermal systems could provide up to 12% of the country's electricity demand. The most hopeful thing is that by not depending on volcanic areas or HERES, this technology can be replicated almost anywhere on the planet. What Google and Fervo have demonstrated is more than just a functional power plant, have shown that something the industry considered impossible, drilling horizontally into hot rock and creating an artificial geothermal reservoir, is not only possible but scalable. For decades, no one seriously tried it because no one believed it was possible, and when someone did it, the rest of the world understood that the limit was not physical, it was mental. The heat is there under our feet almost anywhere on the planet. It's been waiting for billions of years, and we finally have the tools to take advantage of it. In 1904, Ginori Conti's guests saw 5 light bulbs light up in a room in Tuscany and considered it. At that moment, no one in that room could have imagined that 100 years later, that same principle would power the data centers of one of the largest companies in the world. When evaluating what Google and Fervo have built in Nevada, the first thing that stands out is the scale of the ambition. Not a one-time solution, but a technology designed from the beginning to be replicated anywhere on the planet. For reference, if current plans are realized by 2050, enhanced geothermal could cover 16% of all US, as with any emerging technology. At least one generation of engineers will have to train within this new paradigm, building traditions and proving that this is not a passing fad. However, right now, if someone had predicted 10 years ago that fracking would become a tool for the clean energy transition, it would have seemed like nonsense worth ignoring. Unfortunately, there is a reason to view some of these developments with some caution. The challenges of induced seismicity and thermal exhaustion are real, and since the first successful projects, definitive solutions have not yet been found for all possible scenarios. It is still a mystery if this silent force will rise as the great energy pillar of our time, or if it will need decades of trial and error to compete head-to-head with the empires of the sun and the wind. But that does not mean that this revolution has not already begun to beat under our feet. A big hug to the patrons who support my informational independence. Subscribe and leave a like to support the channel. Thank you for your visit and see you in the future.